Welcome to the Forensic Financialist, where we simplify business and leadership challenges and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. We discuss tough issues facing business and figure out easy-to-implement solutions. Using the rearview mirror approach, we look in the rear view to move towards a brighter future. Here's your host, Jeff Newkirk.
Welcome to the Forensic Financialist, where we aim to improve your business and help you grow both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Jeff Newkirk. And today we're speaking with well-known business owner, author, and is on the speaking circuit, Mr. Jim Muehlhausen. Like most entrepreneurs, Jim Muehlhausen has an eclectic background ranging from CPA, franchisee, attorney, business owner, consultant, franchisor, public speaker, university professor, and book author. While still attending the Indiana University School of Law, he became the youngest franchisee in Meineke discount muffler history. After successfully selling that business, Jim founded an automotive aftermarket manufacturing concern. During his 9-year tenure with that business, the company achieved recognition from Michael Porter of the Harvard Business School and Inc. magazine in the IC 100 fastest growing businesses. About 20 years ago, he found his true passion, serving as a consultant, business coach, and advisor to hundreds of businesses. He has conducted over 10,000 one-on-one consulting sessions with business owners around the globe. He has previously written 2 well-regarded books, The 51 Fatal Business Errors and How to Avoid Them, and Business Models for Dummies, and has contributed to publications such as Inc., The Small Business Report, Entrepreneur Business Week, and various business journals. Jim has now turned his attention to the problems facing aging business owners by studying thousands of business owners, collecting their best practices and augmenting them. Jim created the Half-Retire Blueprint. This step-by-step process helps business owners create a profitable alternative to selling their business via half-retirement. This trademark system is outlined in Jim's book, Half-Retire. Keep your business, ditch the stress. Jim, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
Great to be here, Jeff.
I appreciate you taking the time. Boy, you have an incredible career. You have done so many things, so much to be proud of. Is there one thing that kind of sticks out as your greatest success?
That's an interesting question. You could ask that a lot. I remember when I was younger. I was in law school at the time, and you go, "What is your purpose?" Right? And you're listening to a lot of books on tape, and you're trying to figure things out. And I go, "Okay, well, you need a purpose, right? A vision for your life, and why do you get out of bed in the morning?" And I always have felt that my job was to make lives better via business. And I thought that many years ago, and I still feel that way today. I think I'm doing it differently than I did back then. But I had a guy named Tim that managed my first Meineke in Bloomington. And, here I was, this 23-year-old punk trying to run a business. And I certainly would not have gotten through law school without Tim. And I felt like we really worked well together, and I really wanted him to have that business. I was ready to move on once I graduated, and I sold all the stores that I'd accumulated, and including that one. And I was able to, kind of use the business acumen that I had accumulated and get him that store and really shoehorned it in. I did everything from get him the financing, got him set up for success. And it really altered the course of his life. He and his family now has 3 stores, and his social status and economic status was elevated. And I go, if that guy wouldn't have met me, his life would have been different. So that to me would probably be number one.
I can see why. What a success story. And I would venture to guess that over 10,000 one-on-one consulting sessions, you've seen it all. Is there any?
Well, you never see it all, but I've seen a lot.
I bet it would be hard to surprise you. Is there any one situation that sticks out as one that you really feel good about? you made a real impact on that business? Which I'm sure have been many, but is there one that particularly sticks out to you?
There's certainly an aspect of doing that many sessions with people, and then obviously, there's some people I've had hundreds of sessions with. Within that 10,000, there's some I've had one. Maybe you're traveling, or maybe it's a one-off. And so I think it's always easy to go to the ahas. And sure, I could think of one situation for a client where literally I had a kind of an accumulation of situations, facts, best practices, and he kind of complained about this one thing one too many times. And I was able to formulate an idea for him that has been worth $5 million and counting. And this is one of those few ideas that as a consultant, you could literally measure to the penny. Usually you have to make an estimate what it was worth. This one's pretty simple. It's economic, and you can measure it to the penny, $5 million and counting, from basically something that was 5 minutes over dinner with a client. But those aren't the ones that to me are the ahas. That's what everybody expects it to be, right? Oh my gosh, Jim brings his special genius and then waves his magic wand and life is altered forever. And it usually doesn't work that way. It's usually more of a process because we're human beings and we're inclined to not change. Myself included, I'm guessing you as well. It's psychological.
I would definitely fit
and so a lot of the benefit comes over time.
Right. Yeah. It's a process. Yeah. Very good.
And so, getting people to have that moment of aha, or maybe see things a different way, those are the ones when you could really, sometimes you can kind of see the light bulb forming over their head, and it's usually not, you're doing it this business way, do it this way. That's just the best practice. And those are great. And guys like you and me, that's part of how we earn our living. I call it being a bumblebee, right? You take pollen from one flower and you spread it to another, and we usually morph it and add to it and augment. Like you mentioned, the Half Retire book's a lot of that, right? Augmenting and collecting and sequencing best practices that are very disparate, and if I didn't do it, there wouldn't be a Half Retire program. That's the value that I bring in that particular case. But best practices are great, but I think that helping someone see their world or their business a different way usually isn't a light switch.
Right. Yeah, very good. And I like I said, I'm sure you've impacted positively so many businesses. You have such a great career. And now with the Half Retire program, this is a very interesting concept. Tell me, how did you come up with it, and what was sort of the inspiration for you?
It probably started 15 years ago when if you've owned a business and you haven't had that daydream about selling it, right? I'll cop to selling my Meineke's, which I shouldn't have. I should have half retired from them at 27 instead of sell them, because I'd have a lot more money in the bank today if I would have done that. But I was frustrated. You know the old saying, you don't sell business because you want money, you sell it because you're frustrated. And it happens, and they get fed up. Yeah, they throw their hands in the air. They just want it to go away. And I want someone else to take my problems. But what you realize if you've bought and sold enough businesses like you and I have, that someone doesn't pay you to take your problems, you pay them to take your problems. And that's an expensive aspirin.
That's for sure.
And so you started to see it, right? And then I'll cop to getting frustrated with clients because it was effectively whining. I don't want to deal with this anymore or whatever. And it's just, here's how we can actually make this not a problem anymore. But they wanted the easy way. I don't want to have to actually dig in and fix that. I just want someone else to do it for me, so I'll sell it, and they'll be stuck with this problem. The fallacy in that is buyers must be stupid and they're not going to see the problem. And so therefore they're going to pay you for the privilege of fixing the stuff you don't want to fix. And it never worked. That plan never works, by the way. Buyers are not stupid. And so then you turn into this. I mean, heck, I lost 2 years of my life trying to. I had a buyer for 2 of our 3 Meineke's. Like I mentioned, I sold the one to Tim, and I still had a couple in Indianapolis that I needed to sell. And I went round and round for 18 months to 2 years on a deal that was so close to being done, I endorsed a check for almost full price and put it in my bank account, and it fell apart after that.
Oh, my goodness.
After I had the money. I mean, how much closer can it be? And so you start over. And then I got a much worse deal. But I was mentally done with that business. I was like, I'm not in that business anymore. I had moved on to the next business. And I had checked out, and I made a terrible mistake that I tell my clients not to make, which is you run your business as if you're going to own it forever until the deal's done.
Right.
Because people check out.
Yes.
I checked out. I checked out a year before we sold it. The first time, the deal that didn't go through, I had checked out a year ahead of time.
And that's typically not going to end well when you check out early.
That's right.
Right?
It didn't. It ended okay. I mean, it ended okay, but I had a deal. The first deal was 97% cash up front, which is pretty hard. I mean, we could have just wrote off the last 3%. Who cares? The next deal, we got enough to pay the fees. Basically, the next deal, we got enough cash to pay the IRS, pay the broker, pay the professionals, and literally did not put a penny in our pocket until the earnout started coming, because that's how bad we wanted out.
So
no, we made lots of money. I mean, we did very well, and I sold the business for a good price, and we made a lot of profit doing it. But it would have been better to have a great big check,
of course,
instead of wait 5 years.
So that was a tough lesson learned, but a step towards the Half Retire program, I would assume.
Well, I would, yeah, because I sold because I was frustrated, right? One of my favorite quotes from a client is, "If I didn't own this place, I'd quit."
That's a good one.
We've all felt that way, right? I don't know that I ever said it out loud, but he had the guts to say it out loud. But that's a fixable problem a lot of times. And so the whole point of Half Retire is you have taken all these years, right? Lots of us 20, 30 years to build this. What's an annuity? The problem is that annuity requires you showing up for work and sometimes slaving away, working too hard, taking on stress. But what if you didn't have to have that stress and you could keep the annuity?
Right. Yeah.
You'd never sell. It's a lousy deal.
Somebody else is the technician, right? And you are not involved in that detail. But you serve as sort of the go-to for the big decisions and vision of the business.
Yeah, I call it your Picasso work. So we all have work that is highly valuable, that adds a tremendous amount of value to the business, and usually it doesn't take a lot of time. That if you look at an analogy of making $1 million painting, there's an awful lot of work that has to go from let's have a painting to selling a painting and collecting the money. There's a lot of work in there, but only the touching the brush to the canvas needs to be done by the artiste.
Right. So you outlined 6 specific steps to the Half Retire program. Can you give us a glimpse into those 6 steps?
Sure. The first is what we call the magnet, meaning you have to have a reason to Half Retire. Mm-hmm. Sure, I might like to work a little bit less. That's not a magnet. Here's a good example of magnet. Have a good client, and she and her husband agreed that they would both retire on X date. She calls us and she says, "Hey, I got a problem. I broke this promise to my husband. 2 years ago, we agreed we'd retire on the same date. I've broken my promise. My grandkids are at their golden years, like 5 to 10-ish. Where you want to be around them the most as grandparents." And she goes, "I'm missing those years, and I just can't seem to break away from the business." She had a very enviable and successful business. Nothing wrong with her business at all. Just was a time suck. And she said, I got to live up to my promise to my husband, and I want to see my grandkids. And they're a long ways away, and I got to break away from this business. And so she had that is a strong magnet.
That's
right.
I want
to maintain my relationships with my family, etc. I feel like I have this broken promise. And to her credit, she did great work on step 2. Step 2 is what we call the mindset work. The mindset that it took to take your business from 0 to where it is today, in some ways, is very different than it will be in half retirement.
Okay.
By definition, it can't be the same, right? I mean, how can you work 2 half days a week, take the exact same amount of money out of the business, and have it work the exact same way? If it was that simple, you would have done it a long time ago.
Right.
And so in some ways it is simple, but it's different. And so you have to think differently about how the business, everything from your operational process, maybe your business model needs a tweak, maybe the way you think about things. And in her case, some of it was, we'll call it head trash. It was the way she was thinking about stuff. And so we challenged that. You know, she went through the training program, she engaged in the boot camp, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about this entirely, like I did 20 years ago, and I don't have the same goals and desires that I did 20 years ago. And so she shifted her mindset, and it was like, boom. All of a sudden, she sends me a picture with a half retire hat on, 1,500 miles away from her business, with her arm around her granddaughter.
That's awesome.
A woman that couldn't break away. A solid month. Took a solid month to do that. So that's the power of changing your mindsets, and usually it involves some help. I think it's hard to do that without a mirror. Step 3 is what we call the Jenga step, is the Jenga step. And that's where we're going to remove the business owner from the process. And that's where things, we don't like to use the word delegation, because I think that, I think people oversimplify delegation. Jeff, you're right. I shouldn't do this anymore. You do it. I've delegated. I'm now done. Cool.
That's not how it's going to work successfully.
It's never worked. Yeah, or my personal favorite, I call it the mini-me plan. Hey, Jeff, you seem like a really smart guy. You know what I think? I think you should do my job. Just like mini-me. But I have a little saying, the only person the mini-me plan has worked for is Austin Powers.
Yes, right. Right. So you said
Dr. Evil, I guess it was Dr. Evil had the mini-me plan. Yeah,
so
it doesn't work. You can do it with modifications, but again, they just want to take the I'm not going to do it anymore. Mini-me is going to do it, and that never works. Well, there's a way to do it right, and there's a way to do it wrong. But it usually doesn't work because people shortcut the process, skip steps, and then it doesn't work. In step 4,
just like the game Jenga, if you're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. You'll knock your tower down if you move too fast on a stuck piece, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. In step 4, we re-leverage assets, and the reason that we do that is if you have to retire, we're going to remove a valuable asset from the business called your time. And if you don't want your earning power to go down, we have to re-leverage other assets in order to make up for that time, the value of that time that we're taking away. So we've got a bag full of tricks, if you will, that we've developed over the years that can help people re-leverage existing assets to make sure that we're not taking their income down. Step 5,
Is there a time?
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Is there a time when somebody steps in and says, okay, now you are not going to work 90 hours in your business anymore. Now you're going to work 20. I mean, is there like this hard stop where, all the pieces from the Jenga puzzle have been taken out appropriately, and then there's this hard stop and all those hours spent for the owner?
I usually don't see it going that way. It could. It could go that way. I think it's usually a little bit more fluid.
Because it's hard for an owner to go cold turkey, right? I mean,
Very.
Lived and breathed their business. They can't just shut it off.
That's why you need the magnet. You need a magnet. You know what the best thing people can do is tell someone important to them that they'd like to have retire. That's the simplest thing people can do. There's a name for that. It's called the positive trap. Because if I go tell my wife I'm going to half retire, okay, and I tell her we can't do that on Saturday because I have to work, how do you think that's going to go?
Not well.
That's right. Your wife and my wife must be the same person.
I can say that pretty quickly because I've been down that road before, Jim.
Well, yeah, everybody listening to this has had that happen. But that's a positive trap, and that could be a good thing, right? It doesn't need to be a bonk on the head, but it's a reminder, right, that they can serve as a reminder, just like that woman's husband. Hey, 2 years ago you said you were going to retire. What happened? That was part of her motivation.
Right.
Was not only just to withhold that promise, but to, maybe have her husband stop nagging. I don't know. She didn't share that with me, I'm guessing, But I'm sure he wanted to do stuff with her, and then she wasn't available.
Absolutely.
To do stuff, and that's disappointing.
Any business owner, there's no way that an entrepreneur or business owner can have passion for their business and only spend 20, 30, 40 hours a week on their business. It's just not. I would say that would be by far the exception. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I think that's part of the mindset work that we have to do, right? So especially as I've gotten older, I view it a little bit differently. As I'm in the process of half retiring, I don't view it the same as when I was 35. Because when I'm 35, everything that I did, I never really gave it we'll call it a quality score. I just knew that everything that I did moved my business forward. And that could be hard to unlearn because you want to talk about a mindset shift? You have to, when you're looking at work from a perspective of half retire, you need to view every single thing that you need to do as costing you your half retirement.
Wow. That's something to wrap your head around.
If you had to say, is this worth losing my half retirement over?
Right.
Do you really need to log that check or run a deposit to the bank or whatever, or do that proposal? Right. And that was one of the big things for this woman that I was saying. She was very intertwined. Proposals are a nightmare. We do a lot of work with people that come in the door and they go, listen, I'm responsible. I had a guy who was responsible for $30-40 million worth of business. That he viewed that his personal involvement risked the collapse of the business if he did not do the proposals. And the way that if he explained it to you, you'd agree with him. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't a control freak. He wasn't an egomaniac. He had great relationships and he knew the business better and he knows all the angles. It's always the case, that there's this Picasso, I call it the hairball, that there's this Picasso work that really is your special genius. It's incredibly valued. The business really can't live without it. The problem is it's intertwined in this hairball of other crap. And so what we say is no one else can do it. And yes, you can't delegate the hairball. That's true. But you can't untangle the hairball. And that's what we do. We untangle the hairball. We don't try to delegate the hairball.
Makes perfect sense. And you used a saying early on in our conversation, head trash. I love that saying. I'm gonna use that again. There's a lot of head trash out there. Right? I mean,
we all have it. You have it. I have it. I mean, we all have it. But it's basically just thoughts that we have that hold us back from accomplishing what we'd like or could accomplish.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You can't run a business for 20 years and not develop a way of doing things.
Yeah, you're spot on. Step number 5, Jim.
Step number 5 is set the autopilot. Right, you want to make sure that you're not spending you cut your meeting time, that you've got a dashboard that's going to give you precursors to problems. You want a quick and easy way to keep your finger on the pulse of the business. And there's some cultural things you need to do. There's some management, some reporting things. You may already be doing some of them. I've never been anyone's doing all of them. But there's some things that we're going to do to make sure that, think about it. You can have your finger on the pulse of the business just by your presence. if you're there now.
Right.
But if you're not there, how do you make that work with plan B? And there's a way to do that. That's what we do in step 5. Step 6, enjoy the spoils.
Excellent. The whole reason why you're doing it. Well, I shouldn't say the whole reason, but certainly a motivating factor, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, circle back to the bang there, right? Why did we do this in the first place? And now you get the opportunity and the luxury to enjoy the fact that you've got a nice, stable base of income and that you've made the business more valuable. That's the other thing that people forget about half retirement is if I've got 2 equal businesses and one, the business owner has to be there 50 hours a week or the house of cards tips over, and the other one goes, yeah, I come in and there's some important things that I do and, maybe I work a couple of days a week. Which one do you want to buy?
That's a no-brainer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to take my chances on the one that when this guy is not there anymore, it all stops working. That's the one I want.
See how long that lasts.
Well, they give you a discount. You can sell that business. It's not unsellable.
Of course, but what will be the outcome in that scenario?
Well, that's what the buyer's wondering, right? The buyer's wondering what the outcome is. Do the customers stay if, Mary or Bob leaves? Do the employees stay? Do the processes still work without their skill and talent there? And those are all risks. Those are all risks. And that either lowers the likelihood that they're going to buy it or lowers the price, or both. So
in working with a number of your consultants and implementing the half retire, how would you say people have accepted the program so far? Because to me, it seems like a home run.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool stories and a lot of, it's great to talk to people about it, right? Because I think, at first people's eyes are open. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I need. Because, we haven't even talked about this one group of half retirees that doesn't want to fully retire. I like to golf, but not every day, my personal favorite is I love my spouse, but not that much.
Wow.
They don't mean it in a bad way. They just mean Well, but think about it. You've been going to work every day, and you spend a lot more hours away from them than you do with them, and now all of a sudden you're both at the kitchen table all day.
Right. Got to have something to talk about.
Well, it's actually a fact that one of the big causes of divorce for older people is retirement.
Yeah. They've lived a lifestyle a certain way for so many years, and now they're thrown into a totally different situation. And if there's any element of risk, then it's going to have some challenges. So, yeah, I can see why that would be the case.
Yeah, good. Well, think about your social connections and your perks. There's a lot of good things about owning a business. You got a company car, you got some sports tickets, you got a country club membership, you've got all these, and you've got status, right? I'm a business owner.
Right. And it's true for not just the owner, but the family as well, right? I mean, they all enjoy that same level of status and prestige, and once it's removed, then they have to adjust.
Yeah, if you don't believe me, just watch Arrested Development.
Yeah, no, I believe you.
They all leached from the family business. It's the theme of the show.
So, Jim, as you see this pandemic coming to a hopeful close in the near future, if we have a vaccine and hopefully that'll solve many of the issues that we're dealing with. How do you see small business and half retire going into 2021? Will continued growth? You see more people taking on the half retire program because of the pandemic? What impact do you think is COVID going to have on the half retire and small business?
So I think that we've had a negative impact from. Now the good news is you don't stop getting older just because there's a pandemic, right? So when it was all hitting the fan, I was like, oh my gosh, the book's coming out at the worst time ever. It's going to be a disaster, and it hasn't been. By any stretch of the imagination. It's been good, way better than I thought, and probably what I would have expected if there were no pandemic. And I think the reason for that is because there still is a business need. There's still a lot of business owners that are experiencing way too much stress, kind of the I'm too old for this, type dynamic. That hasn't gone away. It's probably worse.
Oh, I would agree.
But you've got guilt. Yeah, I think that you've got guilt, right? I've got clients that are doing great. They either like people in construction generally are doing very well. I've got people that make cleaning products, and they're up 150%. And it's funny. This guy gets reports from like Nielsen or something, and I think alcohol sales are up 155%. And there's all these categories that are way higher because of COVID. Ice cream is up 125% because of COVID, because we're indulging and all of that. So if you're in some of these categories, life is good, and I'm telling you, some of them feel guilty.
Yeah, now's the time to buy a liquor store and an ice cream shop.
Let's combine them. Let's do a hybrid.
That'd be interesting. That business would go through the roof.
There was a place near me that was a coffee bar and bar. You went to the back, and it was an actual bar, but at the front it was a coffee shop. I always thought that was an unusual combination.
I was just thinking of having a scoop of cookies and cream with a shot of whiskey.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm up for that one.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure I am either. But Jim, this has been great. I appreciate so much you visiting here today on the podcast, and it's so much good information. How can people get in touch with you, learn more about you and the Half Retire program?
Yeah, definitely have them check out halfretire.com. Certainly, pick up the book. It's, on Amazon. It's available as an audiobook for people like me that don't read anymore. I'm a voracious listener, but I'm not a good reader anymore. Thanks, Audible. But audiobook, any bookstore would have this. But there's some good downloadable free items on the website. You can take a free mini course. You can download a blueprint to Half Retirement that runs through all these steps in detail that we've been talking about. So please feel free to check that out and learn more about Half Retirement.
Wonderful. Again, Jim, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great speaking with you. I hope you would be open to coming on again in the future and telling us how the Half Retire program is continuing its success.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Jeff. Great to talk.
You bet. And as always, I'm grateful that you listened. If you feel compelled to follow me, that would be awesome. My hope is that you received at least one nugget of useful information today and maybe even got a little inspired. Hard not to listening to Jim Muehlhausen. If you would like to discuss my business consulting and coaching services, please reach out. If you have some feedback on the podcast, let me know. I'm receptive. I'd love to hear from you. My website is understandablesolutions.com, or you can email me at jeff@understandablesolutions.com. I hope to hear from you. Make it a great day and make tomorrow even better. Peace, everyone.
You've been listening to The Forensic Financialist, where we simplify business and leadership challenges and choose the road that leads to wisdom and excellence. To learn more about Jeff, visit his website at understandablesolutions.com or email Jeff at jeff@understandablesolutions.com. Mentioning this podcast will get you a complimentary discovery session with Jeff. Until next time.